My teenage years are marred by difficult memories. My father left our family, leaving my mother alone to raise us 3 children. This experience solidified in me an unwavering desire to build my ideal family. But as is often the case, life set its sights on me, pushing me into a series of life-changing events that forced me to resort to financial manipulation and a name change. Life has not spared me, and my spouse, in an effort to deprive me of everything, has added more challenges to my life. Today, I am ready to share my story with you. Greetings. At heart, I consider myself an ordinary person, not in terms of triviality, but because of my ability to find pleasure in the little things. I do not require luxury and constant renewal of material goods. A cozy home, quality food, spending time with a glass of drink once in a while, and a woman with whom I can share my life's journey. This is what fills my life with meaning and true happiness. I dream of a quiet life in the company of my soulmate. An ideal day for me is a few hours of fishing, a hobby of tinkering with an old sports car or a pickup truck, an evening barbecue with beer, a delicious dinner, and a relaxed evening spent with a glass of wine in the company of my favorite woman. Everything is simple, and in this simplicity lies my happiness. That, friends, is how I find joy in simple things, to share this bright feeling with you. In my 50s, I feel like a man in full bloom. Medium build, with brown hair and eyes, time has left its marks, but I still feel great without any medication. My life partner, Brenda, at 43, is still a free-spirited and extremely attractive woman with typical Hispanic features. My day starts at 5 in the morning. After showering, dressing, coffee, and breakfast, I head out to my boat, remembering to kiss Brenda goodbye. I spend most of the morning fishing, selling my catch to local stores or taking tourists on charters for extra income, though I don't need it too much. Back at Brenda's house, I cook dinner, do some fish cleaning, and then retire to the garage to work on my latest project, a 1967 GMC pickup. The evening ritual includes a glass of wine or bottle of beer, relaxing on the porch, firing up the barbecue and cooking dinner, steaks, fish, or chicken. Brenda usually joins me with a glass of wine, and we discuss the day's events. After dinner, we clean up and settle down on the couch with books, immersing ourselves in conversation. Our night is usually spent in intimacy, and even on the nights we don't make love, we hold each other in our sleep. It's a life of meaning and fulfillment. Sometimes Brenda and I visit a local bar or invite friends over, which allows us to escape the image of complete hermits. I'm well known in this small coastal town, and I could have envisioned my life here forever, until one day at the bar, I met her, a red-haired beauty, tall and athletic, with emerald green eyes. She reminded me of my wife when I was younger. The difficulty is that I'm still officially married, though Brenda knows about it and accepts it. My wife knows nothing about Brenda, and I try to keep it that way. However, a serious problem arose when my youngest daughter walked into the same bar. We urgently needed to leave so she wouldn't tell my ex-wife what was going on. I quickly explained the situation to Brenda in a whisper, and we quietly left the bar, leaving our friends with a vague excuse. I knew I would have to tell them the real story later. As I closed the door behind me, I realized you were probably wondering what the hell was going on. While you may have a general idea, let me tell you everything in more detail. I am currently in hiding from my unfaithful and, I believe, psychopathic wife. Her infidelity and plans to ruin me have forced me to take drastic measures. Although my real name is Antonio Allen, I no longer use it for obvious reasons. My childhood was spent in a small California town where I was the middle child in a family of 3 children. The death of my parents in a car accident during my college years and the subsequent death of my older brother in a construction accident alienated me from my younger sister. We even stopped communicating after my graduation from engineering college. After moving across the country, I started working for a large engineering company. It was there that I met Sharon through a mutual friend. Despite the troubling signs related to her desire to delay adulthood and pursue a degree, I was captivated by her beauty, charm, and obvious intelligence. We hit it off immediately, and our relationship soon became exclusive. 3 months later, she spent the night at my place, and another 3 months later, I proposed to her. A year later, we were married. Our married life seemed blissful. Sharon became a full-time mom after she found out she was pregnant, and we had 3 healthy children, James, Michael, and Kimberly. Kimberly especially captured my heart and became Daddy's little girl. While Sharon stayed home taking care of the household, I took on the responsibility of providing for our family. By my 30th birthday, I was promoted to senior engineer, and shortly thereafter we purchased a house in the suburbs. Life was prosperous. We had nice cars, a cozy home, and we went on frequent dates. Sharon was active in our children's extracurricular activities, and I always supported her by trying to attend every event. However, on April 9, shortly after my 45th birthday, an event occurred that turned my world upside down. Returning home from work from a construction site near my house, I was shocked to see my best friend Earl's car turn onto the road. He obviously thought I wasn't home. Puzzled, I parked on the street and watched from a distance. I saw Earl walk to the door and enter the house using the key. Concerned, I called the office and apologized for any possible delays in the project. Later, while walking around our backyard, I noticed a small gap in the bedroom blinds. The blinds on the patio door were usually left open. Cautiously, I crept over to the bushes to observe what was happening through the French doors. There, before my eyes, my wife in a short robe was passionately kissing my former best friend. Quickly pulling out my cell phone, I began recording their actions. As soon as they headed down the hallway, I moved closer to the bedroom window, continuing to record everything that was happening. When she came in and took off her robe, I had to stop recording when his pants came down. I couldn't bear the sight and walked away, furtively backing away from the window. How happy I was that they didn't notice me. Many might say that both of them should be taught a lesson in such a situation, but at that moment it was too painful for me to watch. What would you have done in my shoes? Back in the office, I was stunned. I never expected Sharon to betray our marriage. Wanting more information, my engineering mind began to search for solutions. I convinced Sharon that I would be home later, which was a plausible excuse given my frequent working late. I found some discreet Wi-Fi cameras, although they were expensive. I made sure that financially she wouldn't notice the purchase until it was too late, and delivered the cameras to the office to avoid suspicion at home. At the same time, I secretly manipulated our savings and retirement accounts, making minor changes. My final task was to research divorce laws. The task was unpleasant but necessary. The following week, I had to go about my normal behavior, hiding from Sharon the knowledge I had recently acquired. Apologizing for my cold, I avoided close contact and intimacy, which led to us sleeping separately, symbolizing our rift. On Friday, the cameras arrived, which I discreetly placed in strategic locations while Sharon was at the store. The cameras were placed in the bedroom, living room, and kitchen, and I hid the recording device in the attic, where Sharon never went upstairs. It must be admitted that we were close that night. She was still attractive and our physical connection was always satisfactory. Sunday, I spent time with the kids doing fatherly duties, cooked dinner, and watched a movie before bed. At work on Monday, my thoughts were consumed with what was waiting for me on the camera footage. Upon returning home, Sharon noticed my anxiety, but I attributed it to staffing issues at work. After dinner, I apologized and retired to my home office. There I secretly downloaded the video to a flash drive and began watching. I fast-forwarded to the moment Earl entered the house. The footage included scenes of them kissing in the living room, intimate acts on our marital bed, and their interactions with each other. After a brief moment in the bathroom, they dressed, exchanged another passionate kiss, and Earl made a shocking revelation that made me think about investigating in more detail. That evening, Sharon noticed my moodiness. I mentioned the staffing problems at work again, hinting at a possible layoff, which she didn't like. The next morning, I listened to an audio recording that shocked me even more. "When are you going to leave that loser Antonio and come away with me?" asked Earl. "I can't yet," she replied. "I want to wait until the kids are older, or he'll be too much of a nuisance to them. Besides, he makes good money, and I want to build up a decent capital before I leave him." "Do you hate him that much?" Earl asked. "No, I like him. He provides for me well, but I've never really loved him. It was always just a lucrative meal ticket for me. He's not bad in bed, but I always thought of him as more of a friend with benefits. When I finally divorce him, I need to take as many of his assets as possible to maintain the lifestyle I want. Not in a desire to cheat him, I just want to make sure I can live comfortably without having to work for the rest of my life," she continued. "And what if he finds out? We could both end up on the street." Earl pointed out, "He won't find out, and even if he does, I'll present the hard facts during the divorce," Sharon said confidently. About 6 months into our marriage, I realized that I wasn't working, which guaranteed that I would receive substantial alimony in the event of a divorce. This included education, child support, medical care for the children, and a significant portion of our savings in retirement. I also intended to seek full custody of the children and get the house. After hearing her plans, I realized that I would have no choice but to accept it. If I put up a fight, she would destroy me. At that moment, my world turned upside down and I started thinking about how to protect myself. I didn't fully realize the gravity of the situation, but I knew I needed to act immediately. I spent the day researching divorce laws in our state, realizing the bleakness of the situation. After discussing my options with a lawyer friend, we came to the conclusion that I would have to pay substantial alimony, give her the house, split her retirement savings, and pay monthly alimony due to her unemployment during our marriage. The state would not consider her betrayal. Feeling completely overwhelmed, I realized there was only one path I could choose, even though it would be painful for the next few months. At that pivotal moment, I made the decision to put together false documents, quit my job, cashed out my retirement savings, and refinanced my house by transferring all the funds into offshore accounts. I actively created multiple offshore bank accounts online, making transfers in random amounts to avoid detection. Withdrawing cash from ATMs, I transferred it to new accounts in my name and then electronically transferred it offshore, leaving only a couple $1,000s in our accounts. I sold my car for cash and added those funds to the offshore assets. Using the excuse of a day off, I went to the office while Sharon was busy at the gym. All the videos and information I had collected were saved on flash drives and cloud storage. I then sent mass emails of dirt to her friends and family. I completed the final transfer of funds to offshore accounts, closed all internal accounts, and destroyed all reports and documents in the fireplace to leave no paper trail. The computer was reformatted, and I used a flash drive with a destructive virus to delete all data. Accounts were secured and paper trails erased, making it much harder to find information on accounts I didn't even know existed. I moved the money repeatedly, erasing all traces, and ensured the funds were safely stored using a briefcase and suitcase. After careful preparation, I set off for the airport, making 3 important stops along the way. At each of my children's schools, I left a flash drive with information for them and another at my soon-to-be ex-wife's house. Leaving my car in the airport parking lot, I set off on my journey. Over the course of a week, I took 6 flights, used 3 rental cars, visited various airports and 4 countries before landing in Costa Rica, ready to start a new life under a new identity. Before you label me a soulless nerd, let me clarify. I have set up a trust fund for my children. This fund will provide for their education and ensure adequate financial security for their needs. A trusted friend from work became a trustee of the fund to make sure the kids would get everything they needed. However, my wife was unable to access these funds. I made sure that the children's basic needs, such as food and shelter, were covered, providing them with decent housing and food, albeit without luxury. The house was eventually lost due to her inability to pay the mortgage, forcing her to look for alternative accommodation. Through my strategic actions and investments over more than 6 years, I had accumulated over $5 million in an offshore bank, to which Sharon had no access. Now let me explain why I chose this course of action and where I got the $5 million. Going back to spring break of my freshman year in college where I studied engineering, following in the footsteps of my father, whom I had not seen for 6 years after he left home, I remember the chaos he left behind. He left each of us a flash drive revealing a disturbing truth about our childhood and the hardships my mom faced. We lost our home for a while and had to cope with smaller rented accommodation, and Mom even had to find a job she despised. Fortunately, my father left us a trust fund that provided us with everything we needed. But Mom was excluded from this fund and she had to earn her own money for clothes and extra expenses. Thus, I was provided with everything I needed and did not need anything. If you draw a parallel, you will probably realize that I followed my father's example. Like many years ago, he too faced betrayal from the woman he loved. Despite his actions, I cannot condemn him because I believe he was not only acting in his own best interest, but also in the best interest of his children. Because of him, I was able to lay the foundation for my future. Now back to the present. I left my wife before she could even realize her scheme with my best friend. Having lived in happiness for 5 years, Despite being officially married, it didn't embarrass me. My current girlfriend, though she tried to understand me, still warned me that sooner or later I would have to confront my wife to discuss everything. The mere thought of it made me dread it. I didn't want to see her face, so much did the thought of meeting her repulse me. Some might call me a coward for having disappeared without a trace and for 5 years without any sign of life. I was afraid to renew contact, but over the years I was able to build a new life and find happiness. However, I realized that it was impossible to hide forever because sooner or later I might be discovered, and then the situation would become extremely difficult. My children and sister were looking for me all over the states, and they could find me at any moment. Thanks to my lawyer friend who called me weekly, I was kept up to date on Sharon's life. After I put my plan into action and left, it turned out that it took Sharon a long time to come to terms with what was happening. She was perplexed, unable to believe that her husband, who had always seemed faithful and generous with pocket money, had suddenly disappeared, leaving her with nothing. She was even more shocked that I had anonymously sent her parents and next of kin pictures of her cheating on me with my best friend. The consequences of my action exceeded all my expectations. Sharon's parents were deeply religious people, and she was brought up in a strict and moral family. She was always an example to others, an excellent student, and her parents were proud of her. Imagine their shock and disappointment when they learned the truth through an anonymous letter. Her parents and all the people closest to her were turned away from her, and she became an object of scorn. Of course, facing such a thing is unpleasant, but I believe she deserved it, and I am not ashamed of my actions. Surprisingly, my fake friend Earl, who used to visit her often, turned his back on her as well. I guess he didn't want to be associated with someone who had become the laughingstock of society. It was funny when Earl tried to contact me, threatening me and demanding moral compensation for the damage he had done. I changed all my information and became a completely different person. But back to my ex-wife. Looking through her recent photos, I noticed that she had clearly stopped looking after herself. It seems like it's been a long time since she's been in a new relationship. While I don't feel any schadenfreude, I don't care what happens to her. The most important thing to me is the well-being of my children. Going back to that moment at the bar, my ex-wife and my sister have spent the last 5 years trying to find me. I had hoped that I could remain invisible forever, but alas, one can never be 100% sure. At the beginning of my story, I mentioned a bar where we often vacationed with friends. It was there that a girl appeared who reminded me of my ex-wife. It turned out to be our daughter, who had somehow found out what state I lived in and had been hiding from me for the past 5 years. I was really paranoid that day and didn't know what to do. Brenda tried to reassure me, but to no avail. The next day, I contacted a friend at the bar who told me that a girl had come in the day before trying to get her mother a job as a waitress. She was turned down and her mother's name was Sharon. To tell you the truth, the news that Sharon had tried to get a job as a waitress at the very bar we frequented together stunned me. We loved the place and dreamed of buying a lake house nearby to enjoy life in retirement. I speculated that Sharon might have moved here with our daughter to save money and reminisce about her youth. Not knowing what to do, Brenda suggested I talk to Sharon. She felt that Sharon may have realized her mistake and didn't want to hurt me. I heeded the advice of Brenda, a wise and beloved woman to me, and decided to meet with Sharon. I got her phone number through a friend at the bar and made an appointment to meet at the same bar the next day. On the appointed day, Brenda and I arrived and sat down at a table. Sharon looked much better than she had in years. As we talked, it became clear that Sharon had been angry with me for a long time and had even tried to find me, even hiring assassins, but to no avail. Eventually, she started going to church and atoned for her sins. And at some point, she realized that it was in Costa Rica that she could start her life over and feel happy. It was the same place I chose for a fresh start with Brenda. We enjoyed a quiet life in Costa Rica. Sharon moved here and rented my old house, and I helped her find a job. My resentment towards Sharon had faded, and although I didn't love her, I felt she had already received her punishment. We bought a larger house so our family could go out with Sharon. Working as a waitress, she often served us at a local bar, expressing regret for her actions, but I made it clear to her that she could be homeless if she jeopardized our well-being. Life goes on, and we continue to enjoy our time together. And that's the end of my story. Write your opinion in the comments. Did the main character do the right thing by deciding to leave his wife and children? Could he have been more calm about the situation? We believe that the main character made the right choice. He chose to be happy. The situation he faced was terrible, but the main thing is that he coped and found the strength to move on. And it didn't matter what he went through because it wasn't all for nothing. If you like this story and would like to see more like it, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. This will help us realize that this is important to you, and we will pick up more interesting and instructive stories. Thanks for watching and see you soon.
Thank you so much for watching my video and your time. Please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button. Also, I am very interested to know your personal opinion about this story. You can write it in the comments. I will definitely read it and reply to you personally.